This is the Franchise QB Podcast, where we empower entrepreneurs to win big in franchising. We huddle up weekly to educate our audience about the most successful small business model ever created, franchising.
Welcome to the Franchise QB Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Halpern, a 20-year industry veteran and entrepreneur. My mission is for listeners to achieve their American dreams of creating wealth and independence through franchise ownership. Every week, we speak with franchisees, franchisors, or vendors that support the industry. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Joining us in the huddle today is Corey Shanahan, Director of Franchise Development with Gatsby Glass and HorsePower brands. Welcome to the show, Corey.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about your background before we jump into your brand, Gatsby Glass. You've been in the healthcare space for a good part of your career, specifically, it seems like in medical devices. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, after college, I shadowed with a good friend of mine, and he was one of the regional managers for the entire West Coast. And so I fell into medical device, and I was in facial and head trauma first for the first 4 years. And then I fell in, or I didn't fall in, but moved and transitioned over to spine. So I was in spine, basically representing all the hardware and implants that were placed into the patients for the last 12 years. And then ran into Chris Phelan, the VP at HorsePower, and he talked me into going to a Discovery Day with HorsePower. And so I didn't even know what a Discovery Day was at that time. So when I showed up, he's like, it's meant to wow you. It's going to be, it's 150 people there. We do all the brands together. We own and operate 8 home service brands within HorsePower. It's meant to wow the candidates when they fly in town. There's going to be candidates flying in from all different states. And the first night's a social expo, and it's meant to wow them. So you're going to walk around.
So that was like your first foray into HorsePower, is like that whole event with all those people from HorsePower and candidates and the whole thing?
Yeah. And I was wowed. I got to walk around and vet all the different, because it's like an expo setting. So there's all the support services are there. All the brands and I get to meet the teams. And I was trying to poke holes in everything, and I couldn't do it. The one thing that was the green flag for me, is like I like to say, is like people were from different states. Like people moved here to Omaha, Nebraska to be experts in what they were hired for. And so that was my green flag.
Yeah, my first job in franchising 20 plus years ago was for an FSO. And I like the fact that I can use that discipline in terms of helping candidates navigate through the due diligence, but with more than one brand. And HorsePower obviously offers that. There's a portfolio of, how many brands do you have now?
We have 8 home service brands that we own and operate. We have one that's coming shortly, either July or August, that we're adding. So we're going to have 9 here pretty soon.
That's awesome. It's really neat to have all those brands under one roof and all the shared services that they enjoy. So that's cool. I was out there in Omaha meeting with you guys about a year ago, and I got to see Gatsby. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about that. Yeah. And I know there's an air of excitement now because the College World Series is in Omaha. So you mentioned in kind of the green room, you'll be participating in that. So I'm a little bit jealous.
Yeah. We're hosting right now. It's always the second week of June here in Omaha, Nebraska. And obviously the economy booms, all the hotels and restaurants and bars are packed, and it's fun for tailgating and just going down there, a lot of little leagues. It's always during Father's Day as well. So we always go down there. It's a tradition for us and my family. So yeah, it's always fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was a little league coach for 14 seasons. So I remember all the kids were all excited about the College World Series. And I got to see the stadium when I was taking my Uber from your offices to the airport. So that was pretty cool. So let's jump into the brand. So what is Gatsby Glass?
Gatsby Glass is, how I like to articulate it. It's the white collar brand under the blue collar brands of HorsePower. It's the sophisticated, it's a sexy brand. It's one that you can be very, very proud of, but also, candidates that I take through the process, typically they have a frameless shower in their house. They felt the pain of having something in glass installed in their house, and glass is underserviced. So we are a sophisticated glass concept. We install anything you can think of when it comes to frameless showers, semi-frameless frame. We do wine rooms, cigar rooms, countertops, tabletops, custom shelving, accordion doors, and even mirrors.
Very cool. Yeah, we have a frameless shower, not the one that has multiple sides, just the one side. But when we moved to this house and it had it, I was like, this is really a game changer in terms of just the way you feel, the space, it's a really neat feature. So I can see how people, consumers kind of gravitate towards it. But there's a lot of applications we'll talk about here in a minute
Yeah.
on both the residential and the commercial side. So Gatsby was the fifth brand launched. And you mentioned you guys are adding a ninth soon. So this one was kind of middle of the pack. So when an owner launches, do they focus on that industry of the frameless showers and shower doors? Is that kind of how they get a foothold in the market?
Yeah. So the bathroom is the fastest growing segment of the entire glass industry, are these frameless showers. So that's low hanging fruit. You're going to start there. All of our franchisees start with residential. We have a commercial side to this too, but we start in the footprint in the bathroom. Frameless, semi-frame, frame. We teach you how to cut mirror and polish mirror as well. And then once you walk out of that bathroom, the second most popular portfolio item is probably the railings or the wine rooms, room partitions. Everything's open concept these days. And now what are people doing? They're coming home, working from home, remote. They have the kids home for the summertime. So now they want something to, if they have an office, a library, or a den or something, they want to put that glass partition up just to separate that open concept house. We've been called on that a lot. But yeah, the bathroom's low hanging fruit. So that's cash flow that's going to come in the door. And then you're going to scale into all those other services.
Yeah. I looked through your marketing material before today and it was incredible. Just the different applications from the exterior, kind of underneath the railings on the decking, and then the staircases and the showers and the commercial applications. It's really amazing. You don't think about it, but there's a lot of places where there's glass in the home and also at the office building. So tell us what makes Gatsby unique and different from, other brands or franchises in this space.
The first thing I like to talk about, we just all of our brands in general, if we can answer the phone, show up on time, clean up after the job, and be done with the job on time, we're outperforming the competition in home service. But what Gatsby does really, really well too is inject sales, marketing data, and technology into our brand. And so when our salespeople show up to a house, they're going to have a Ram ProMaster glass rack or a sales vehicle wrapped, beautifully wrapped. It's different. It's, our competition has a white van with blue lettering or red lettering. It says Chris's Glass. So when we roll up, the sales guy gets out, he has a Gatsby Glass polo on, he has an iPad in his hand with a virtual showroom, so we walk him through an interactive experience, a customer experience. And that's the biggest differentiator, our technology. So we have a virtual showroom, we have a visualizer tool that you can build out a 3D rendering of the project prior to, the customer handing over cash to you. And so we have a higher closing ratio because of all these aspects. We just look more professional. And so if we can be the subject matter expert of glass and installation, you're going to have a higher closing ratio, which we do. And then, you just service those people. Again, they're proud of your work. You're proud of your work. And also, if they like you, if they trust you, and if you can follow through, if you can just do what you say you're going to do, you're going to get repeat customers. You get word of mouth, builders, subcontractors, the referral network. They're going to want to use you as well.
So with that visualizer tool and that augmented reality, you come in with an iPad, you can go into the bathroom and you can show them exactly what a product will look like in that room real time for the customer.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's one of our key differentiators. So, not only are we educating on glass, clarity, thickness of glass, different patterns of glass, what tempered glass is, but we have different stains and finishes for hardware. And so they get to see different bars, different hooks that you can add on. You get to see different handles, where you want to open the door, if we want to go from the right to the left or the left to the right. So now they see a blueprint. I call that the HGTV effect, because when they see a blueprint, they know exactly what they're getting. They have that, they don't have a buyer's remorse. They feel confident they're making the right decision. And so that's why we have a higher closing ratio.
Yeah, that's really cool. So tell us what the labor model looks like. When you launch the franchise, besides the owner, and I understand the owner can be, an operator, or they can be more semi-involved and hire for that role. But when you launch a Gatsby, what's that going to look like from a staffing standpoint?
Yeah, so if you're an owner operator, you're going to be the GM. You're going to run the day-to-day operations. You're going to hire one sales manager, and then you're going to hire your lead installer. Anybody that installs glass is called a glazer. And then you're going to hire a junior installer right after that lead installer. Your junior installer is there for extra hands for your lead installer. He's there as like an apprentice. Now, if you're a semi-involved model, you would hire a GM to run the day-to-day operations. You would hire a sales manager and your lead installer, your lead glazer, and then you'd hire a junior installer right after him. So you start.
So this is all W-2. You guys don't bring in subcontracted labor unless it's like a big project.
That's funny you bring that up. So we have started with W-2. We want W-2. We can do a criminal background check. These people are walking into some high-end homes and real estate. But once what's happening with our franchisees is we're scaling pretty quickly. And so if you need to hire some guys pretty fast, I think we are open to W-2 or 1099s now. So we're having actually to move it over to like a hybrid model. We want you to start with W-2, but if you need to hire some 1099s, that would be okay with the system.
Very cool. So, I mean, there's a lot of brands out there. So what makes Gatsby Glass a compelling franchise opportunity for someone that's kind of saying, okay, this kind of sounds really cool, but like, why should I invest in this one?
It's sophisticated. When you're looking at home service, like people that are looking at flooring concepts or restoration concepts, it's that type of person. This person that comes and looks at Gatsby, it's a C-suite person. It's a person that appreciates glass. They appreciate eco-friendly, natural lighting. They want to build a referral network. If they're not afraid to go out and build relationships with builders, subcontractors, GCs, interior designers, architects, real estate agents. I mean, we're reading blueprints too. We're hiring within Gatsby a blueprint analyst right now. So we're going off, getting blueprints for these jobs. And so right now, currently, they're reading the blueprints, but soon in early July, we hired a blueprint analyst that you can just send in blueprints. We'll read them for you and tell you exactly how much material you're going to need for projects.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. So tell us about like filling the funnel with good candidates. What are the preferred methods you use for client acquisition in your model?
Client acquisition. Yeah. I mean, that's, we're organic, 70% organic, 30% paid leads. Okay. Is typically, we're high up in organic because in 2020 pandemic happened. What did everything do? Pricing went up on everything, for materials, for building, but also marketing dollars. And so what we're doing is we're getting creative, and we teach, train, coach how to get involved in the BBB, the Chamber of Commerce, the B&I groups, the master networks, the Builders Association, Glass Association, Remodelers Association, home magazines. But then on top of that, we teach and train how we have playbooks dedicated what to say when you walk up to a construction site, what to ask for, and then building relationships with builders, subcontractors, GCs, tile and flooring guys, plumbers, bathroom remodelers, interior designers, architects, and real estate agents are all great for trusted advisors. And so if we can build that referral network, that is free leads. So now we're weaning off of the digital marketing agency, and those guys are calling you directly and they're sending you leads.
Yeah, I can certainly see with real estate agents and interior designers specifically, there's a tremendous amount of trust they build with their clients with that consultative process, that when they recommend you got to use Gatsby for our glass, they're not going to bat an eye. They're going to say, well, it's probably the best product and the best price and the best experience, so let's just go with them. And they're kind of GCing the project, so to speak. So I can see how those referrals really stick. We
thought it would be harder to build these relationships because we thought that they had probably a loyal relationship that they're already outsourcing glass to. But what we're finding in our market that that's not the case. Glass is super underserviced still, and that goes for B2C or B2B. And so we're winning relationships. I shouldn't say it's easy. Nothing's easy, but if they like you, right, if they trust you, and if you can follow through with a project, that's all they want. Just show up and do the job and do it and do good quality and do it on time. And then they'll just keep on giving you business. And that's the referral.
Yeah, right on. So talk to me a little bit about this national permit database that HorsePower is invested in. It sounds really interesting if you have your finger on the pulse of what projects are coming up, new construction. Then you can obviously target that as a client that you can maybe do a lot of multifamily or multi-unit. So what is the national database all about, and how does that help an owner?
Yeah, so the national permit database, there's actually some new things that we're implementing with that. And so we're kind of getting out of the old one. We're implementing some new information, and we're polling records for permits that are dedicated to glass. And I don't have the specifics on that, so I can't get in the weeds on it right now.
Okay.
We're working on that right now. We actually have a franchisee specific in one of our markets that's figured out a way to find these glass, the permits. And so we can go out and try to bid them. The first one's on.
Very cool.
Working on it right now.
So give us a sense of scope of the marketplace, like in terms of current market size, future projections. I know we have new construction, we have remodels, and we have commercial. What does that look like in terms of market size?
So I didn't know off the top of my head. I wrote them down, so I'm looking down. But the residential new construction, 104 billion market. The residential remodel, 131 billion. And then the commercial construction, 230 billion. But you're right. Those are the three segments that we target: residential new construction, residential remodeling, and commercial construction. The residential new construction, we've been successful at building relationships with track home builders and custom home builders. Track home builders want the biggest discount, and then the custom home builders want the best quality with the discount. And we've been able to successfully close those deals within the ecosystem of Gatsby.
Okay. Yeah, you touched on both sides. So what does the revenue breakdown look like for an owner between the B2B and the B2C?
What's the rep? I'm not understanding the
like the ratio. Is it like 50-50 in terms of commercial?
Yes. So we want to be 60% B2B, 40% B2C. But realistically, when you launch your business, you're going to be higher B2C just because your team's out there, you're doing brand awareness. But also the marketing machine's turned on. Our digital marketing agency is turned on 3 weeks prior to you launching. So it's inevitable that you're going to get higher B2C initially, but we want to go out and start building that referral network and get a 60% B2B ultimately.
Awesome. So let's segue into that. When an owner joins the system, signs on the dotted line, this is my brand. What's the training look like and the support, out of the gate for new owners?
Yeah.
Is that something where it's kind of a blend of classroom plus, in market?
Yeah. We have overwhelming support. So when you sign with Gatsby, there's two phases. There's phase one and phase two. Phase one is getting through your funding strategy, creating your EIN, finding a flex space, because there is a flex space in the concept.
Let's talk about that. So what kind of space do we need? Are we talking a couple thousand feet?
Yeah, 1,500 to 3,000 square foot, a flex space.
Okay.
90%.
And what goes in there?
Say again?
What goes in there? What's in that? What are we storing?
90%
materials?
Yeah, 90% warehouse, 10% office space. That's where the glass is being shipped to. So the glass, we're not cutting glass. The glass fabricators cut the glass. We submit the measurements into the glass fabricators. They cut the glass and ship it to you. 7 to 10 business days usually takes. And then once you receive the glass, you're going to QC the glass within your warehouse, your flex space. Make sure it's there. Make sure the dimensions are right. And then make sure the hardware is there too. And that's when you call the homeowner to set up and install.
So when I came to home office and checked out your space, is that a little atypical where you have more of a showroom? Is that kind of an option for a franchise owner, or is that not necessary?
It is an option if they want it, but there's no So we don't require a showroom. In 2020, pandemic happened. Showrooms aren't being used by customers anymore. Customers aren't walking to showrooms. I mean, if you're going to have a showroom, it's because an interior designer, an architect wants to come in, or a builder wants to come and see stuff. But we never start with a physical showroom. You have a virtual showroom. You have a mobile showroom because your sales vehicle has samples that you can bring into the house. And then we have that commercial virtual showroom.
Okay. Yeah. And I kind of interrupted you. You were talking about the training and you mentioned, so let's talk a little bit about like the launch.
Yeah. So the first phase, you're finding your flex space, creating your EIN, you're starting to hire your people. And then once you get through phase one, your funding strategy is phase two, and that's Gatsby Glass onboarding. That's 8 weeks long. You cannot speed it up or slow it down. It's always 8 weeks. And it's 7 weeks of Gatsby Glass University. Okay. And so we have a team that's dedicated to work with you week by week, making sure everything is being taken care of and completed. There's learning paths dedicated to the operator, the GM, the sales manager, the install technician. And then once you get through Gatsby Glass University for 7 weeks, there's Academy in the 8th week, where you come to Omaha, Nebraska with your team. And there's a 5-day Monday through Friday classroom setting, a warehouse setting where we put together frameless, semi-framed, and frame showers, storefront windows and doors on the commercial side. It's very hands-on on that Academy. 7 to 14 days after Academy, you launch. And then our team goes down to your launch as well and helps you that entire week.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thanks. So let's talk about who you're looking for. Who's an ideal candidate to become a Gatsby Glass franchise owner?
Somebody that's accountability, execution, accountability, and work ethic, obviously. is what I'm looking for. Someone that wants to build a team and wants to generate revenue, wants to barrel through obstacles. We have the systems and processes. We have the infrastructure and support built here at HorsePower and with Gatsby. But at the end of the day, I can't get you up in the morning. I can't motivate you to motivate your team to go. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, high caliber candidates that want to build a business. And that's what, if they have usually, and when I'm talking to candidates, a lot of times they have glass in their house. So they've had something glass, that was installed in their house, and it was a terrible experience. And they understand like glass is just underserviced. Glass is unique because nobody's like, even the bathroom remodeler, they're not installing glass. They're outsourcing.
Right.
We just want to be that guy. We want to come in. We're not pulling permits. We're not doing demolition. We're just coming in and installing the glass. It's the last piece of the jewel of the bathroom. It's the last piece of every project. So we come in and put that glass in there.
Yeah, it was interesting to me when you mentioned the market size. Like $6 billion is a good market size for the showers, but then when you talk about like 200, 300 billion, when you kind of broaden it to construction, and then it's even larger when you look at the B2B applications. Look how much glass is hanging in a city. I mean, it's just pretty spectacular. So it really opens your eyes to the fact that this is niche, but it's also pretty broad, and there's a lot of mass adoption already. So let's talk about the territory. So it seems like at HorsePower, they're relatively consistent from brand to brand. So is it about 200,000 people constitutes a territory for Gatsby?
Yeah, one territory. A territory is defined by 200,000 population. We max out at 5 territories. So once you hit 1 million population, it gets pretty hard to manage and market that territory. And we would never want to put a franchisee in a tough position. So we do 3, 4s, and 5s here. You can do a 1 and 2 territory if you want to, but what we're finding is a lot of people do 3 territories just because home service is different than other concepts. Home service is different than pet concepts, food concepts, beauty concepts, fitness concepts. Typically in those other concepts, you need 1 brick and mortar per territory. And if you want to expand to a second territory, you need another brick and mortar, which is double the investment. Whereas with us, you need 1 flex space, and you can service as many territories as possible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about kind of where you guys are now. How many franchise owners are in the system, and how many territories does that represent?
So we have 34 franchisees in the Gatsby ecosystem. We have 27 that are open, and I believe we have 116 units, territories open right now.
Okay. That's a good size. You guys are on your way. So does it geographically, are they spread out across the U.S.? Do you find that most of the owners are in metropolitan areas, or is it kind of a little bit more scattered?
We're everywhere. I mean, one of our top revenue generators is in Oklahoma City. We would never thought Oklahoma City would be a huge glass market, but no, we're finding you can, as long as there's population in that area, we go after new construction, we go after residential and commercial. So every territory, we want a balance of that, high income, low income, and all those other segments. So we want to make sure there's a balance of that in your territory. And then we go out there and we just make sure that everybody knows that you're in business. Our top franchisees are ones that are involved in the community, so getting your name out there, even sponsoring kids, Little League, being in the parade, the local parade. You're locally owned, but nationally backed. We are a franchise, but you're locally owned in your market, and you just have to get out there and make sure everybody knows that you're in business.
And you could just tell the branding is really well done. Obviously, the Gatsby name has a degree of elegance and class to it. When you see the vans, they're just super sleek. So I can see how once you come to market, people will notice.
Yep.
So let's talk about the cost, like to get going, because it is a territory driven, you have that flex space component. What is the item 7? How much is it going to cost to get in the deal?
Yeah. So just like on paper, 198 to 250 for a 1 territory for Gatsby. Okay. But what changes how much your total investment is how you're going to, if you're going to lease, finance, or outright purchase the vehicles. Number 1 is the biggest investment, but also how much you're going to front load. So working capital, how much are you going to front load for the business? Are you going to be the GM, or are you going to hire a GM? So just having cash on hand is king. Cash is king. You want to front load as much cash as you possibly can. So, like I said before, our franchisees typically start at 3 territory when they start with Gatsby and HorsePower. That's our average territory purchase. We do 3, 4s, and 5s. You can do a 1 and 2 if you wanted to. But, at a 3 territory all in within also outright purchasing a Ram ProMaster glass rack and a sales vehicle and front loading enough cash, you're looking at 4 to 450, 3 territory for Gatsby all in.
Yeah, that's good. And I know HorsePower likes to be conservative when it comes to the runway of capital that's needed. So that's fully loaded, like you just said, with buying everything instead of leasing and getting the extra territories and being flush with working capital to get the business.
That's digital. So we have a digital marketing in-house. We have a call center in-house. We have a CPA agency that does payment processing, payroll, financial statements, and bookkeeping in-house. We have Z Fleet that finds vehicles and wraps them for you. We have a recruit agency in-house. So like everything that you're going to need being a new business owner, we have that for you as support. So that's another reason why we're a little bit higher too when it comes to a total. For one thing, we front load the entire year. We don't just front load the first 3 months, which some other concepts can front load just 3 months. We front load the entire year, but we also front load all those support services within the business as well.
Yeah, very cool. So let's talk about performance. Item 19. What can you share with us in terms of performance?
So we have a founding location. They're here in Omaha, Nebraska. They did 2.6 million. We did have on the prior FTD an average ticket, and we had we don't have that on the new FTD. But what I do is when you come through the process, we have validation calls. And so I have 4 different Gatsby Glass owner operators, or actually there's 2 owner operators, 2 semi-involved that are in rotation. And when you jump on validation, you can ask them those questions. What's your average ticket? How many estimates of showers are you doing? How many estimates of railings are you doing? What's your closing ratio? All those things that you need to know to be successful and to make a decision to join, you get that opportunity jumping on validation calls.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's good that you have, owners that are in it, running day to day as owner operators. And you also have semi-involved so that candidates can really juxtapose the two and kind of figure out what ownership type they want and what that financial modeling is going to look like.
Yeah.
And 2.6, that's a lot of glass. I mean, it's really impressive that you can do that in a founding location. It's a lot of volume.
So the founding location, I want to add, the founding location started with just showers. And so they just kind of like in the last year and a half to 2 years, they've came in and they've expanded into the railings, into the wine rooms, into the room partitions, accordion doors, all that stuff. And then on the commercial side, it's even newer. And so they built the business on glass showers. And now they're starting to scale as well with our franchisees.
Very cool. This has been great, Corey. I appreciate you sharing all this stuff with us. Anything else you want to add to the mix that we might have missed before we wrap up?
I'm thorough through the process, and the candidates that come in, they always learn. Whether they pick Gatsby, they're always looking at 3 to 5 concepts. At the end of my process, they've learned something. I'm very transparent as a director. Business ownership is not easy, and so no one should ever say that to you. There's a lot of time and energy that you put into the business, and then you obviously want to get cash flow positive. You want to make some profit, and then you want to scale that. This is 2 guys in a truck. We're going to scale it to 4 guys in 2 trucks, and we scale it to 6 guys in 3 trucks. And that's how you scale the business. But for the most part, just happy to have a concept that's so, like you said, elegant, sexy, sophisticated. It's a really cool brand because, our owners are proud to promote them and promote their business. And I always encourage that. The owners, even if they're semi-involved, they're still going out and shaking hands and kissing babies and introduce themselves to builders and stuff. Also, the significant other typically likes Gatsby Glass as well, because we're going out building relationships with real estate agents, with interior designers and architects. And so whenever I'm taking somebody through the process, if they don't have their significant other in the process, I always encourage them to bring them to Discovery Day, where they can see and meet all the experts. Because typically the significant other, they weren't on any of the calls. And so once they see all the presentations, the overload of information they get at Discovery Day, they get excited as well.
Yeah, and I know there's mass appeal for the product, but the branding and kind of perception is that you're going to be doing business with higher end homes for a good portion of the the workday, and you're going to be spending your time in those neighborhoods and kind of interfacing with those people. So when you have like super connecting, franchisees that have those relationships and are connected in the community, I can see it being a fun business because you're hanging out in nice places. There's dirty businesses, and some people thrive in that model, but this one would be kind of the opposite of that.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Very cool. Well, if anyone listening would like to connect with Corey to discuss Gatsby Glass, contact me at franchiseqb.com or on Twitter at QBFranchiseQB. I'll get you connected with him. Thank you, Corey, so much for taking the time to get in the huddle to speak with us about Gatsby Glass.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Franchise QB podcast, where you're at the helm of your future as a franchise owner. If you enjoyed the content, please rate the show and recommend it to anyone that might be interested in franchising. Make sure to visit franchiseqb.com to subscribe to my newsletter and for an actionable playbook to go from walk-on to legend in your new business. Follow us on Twitter at QBFranchiseQB and join us every week for a new episode. See you next time.
Visit franchiseqb.com to take the next step of your journey towards wealth, independence, and franchise ownership. And remember, when working for the man gets old, you must do something bold. Thank you for listening.